Hello, and welcome to another sermon recap episode of A Product of Proverbs. I'm your host, Joshua Fowler, here with my dad and co-host, Reverend Roy Fowler. And we're here to talk about the message that he brought us this Sunday morning. So, if you didn't know, my dad is the pastor of Damascus Missionary Baptist Church, and we're social distance churching. So, is that a word?
Social distance. I don't know if it's
Churching?
we are, I guess. I mean, we're not having the church gathered at this time. We're practicing safe distancing.
I.e., we digital, we online.
That's right.
Facebook, Damascus Baptist Church. You'll find us and you'll see my dad preaching his sermon. And you can actually go see all of the sermons since COVID. One of my friends and mentors, that's also a pastor, Jazz, pointed out Pastor Fowler keeps us sharp on Sunday morning. You hit him with the three pieces sometime. Yeah, so go check him out. But also, you can hear our sermon recap here on the Product of Proverbs. So what we do is we just sit down and kind of chop it up about what he preached about that morning. So we previously released a sermon recap about Paul and Silas going over their midnight and how they led the revolution in jail. That sounded real dramatic how I said it.
It did.
So go back, listen to the episode for the real story of what went on. That's kind of what happened, technically.
You could say that.
But for this episode, we're going over today's message, which kind of piggybacks off of that message a little bit.
Yeah, really, if you think about it and you notice, most of my messages during COVID-19, the coronavirus time period, has dealt with storms, troubles, hard times, situations, circumstances. I've basically dealt with those issues to bring encouragement to the people because it's a very discouraging time. A lot of the things that we're facing now, nothing we could do about it. You know, it wasn't of our own choices or decisions that we've made. It was made for us. Nature did this. So and that's kind of where I go with my messages. I think he mentioned you could catch us on Facebook Live, but you can also get us on YouTube because my wife put all the messages on YouTube as well. But we're going to recap this message, which comes out of Mark, and we talked about storms. And if you're familiar with the passage, that's when Jesus and his disciples got on a boat. He told them, let's get on the boat and go to the other side. And as they made their way, suddenly a storm arose, and his disciples were frightened and fearful while Jesus was in the boat asleep. And they cried out to him, Master, carest thou not that we perish? And the Bible says that Jesus got up and stood on the boat and said, peace be still. And then the wind stopped and the storm ceased. And I talked about storms and how we're all faced with them and how that's similar to life, because things can happen so quickly and your life can change very suddenly. I have friends, or had friends even, that went to the doctor for regular checkups and got bad reports, terminal reports, and they're no longer here with us. The life changed by one doctor's visit. There's been phone calls that people would get that life would be going good. I've been in situations where some people got that phone call in a perfectly good situation, and life was turned upside down. That's just how quickly things can happen in your life, very quickly. You're doing good on your job and you get called into the office, and guess what? Your job is going away. Now, what are you going to do? You're in a storm and it's not of your own choosing. And that's how it is. And I talked about that. I also talked about the fact that sometimes, there's purposes for these storms. Sometimes we cause them ourselves by decisions we make. And that's what Jonah did, and I use him as the example. When God told him to go to Nineveh, well, he said he's going to Tarshish because he's not going to Nineveh. He's not going to preach to those people. He don't want them to be spared. He wants them to die. So he went the opposite direction And from making those choices, or that particular choice, caused him to go down. He went down to Tarsus. He went down into the belly of the ship. He went down into the sea. He ended up down in the belly of the great fish. And some of your decisions and choices would cause you to be in these storms. And normally when you make wrong decisions and you just become disobedient even to the things you know are right, then it normally takes you down. But I said this about a believer. Yes, he was down, but he didn't stay down. And I hope the people got it when I said you can't keep a God man down. He may go down, but he's going to come up. So be encouraged in that. Even when it's the decisions that you willfully made, you don't have to feel like you're lost in that space and in that place, because you can come up. So don't stay down, because you can come up again. And that's what's so good about being a child of God. And that's what I like about the positivity aspect of Christianity and just religion itself. It's positive, it's encouraging, it gives you, God is a God of another chance. But anyway, I talked about that. Then I talked about sometimes God gives you storms for your own good. Sometimes He have to do that to get your attention, to get, bring you back to Himself. Sometimes, that's the way it goes. And sometimes He'll let a storm come in your life to get your attention, to keep you from something that would really devastate your life, because He cared enough to do that. And I think I talked about Paul with his thorn, how God gave him that thorn to keep him in a place where he would be usable and useful for the ministry. So God does that sometimes. So He allows them, and then Satan, he brings storms. That's what he specializes in. But one of the differences between God sending you a storm, His storm is to give you direction and to get your attention, but Satan's storm is to destroy you and to distract you and get you off your place. So I talked about that, and then I said, well, how do you respond in your storms? What's the first thing you do? What's your first response? And I talked about the disciples. Yes, they were afraid, but what they did, the first thing they did, they went to Jesus. They went to the source of victories. They went to the person that could help them. And the thing about it, He said, why are you so fearful? Why do you have no faith? Because they shouldn't have been in that place because of three things I think I mentioned. Because they had His word. He said, we're going to the other side. They had His presence. He was with them. Though He was out of their sight, He was in their midst. And just because you can't see Him doesn't mean He's not with you. And so they should have been able, because of that. And the fact that He wasn't worried about it and He was with them should have been enough to keep them. And what happens to us is sometimes we look at the circumstances and the situation we're in and get overwhelmed by it, instead of looking past that to God, who is our help, because He is a source of our strength. He's our inspiration, our motivation. He's our help and our hope. And we can trust Him, and because He's able to do those things. And that's kind of what we talked about today. That's a short summary of the message.
And that's a perfect summary. And I think that's all the people need. Y'all have any questions? Y'all know how to get in contact with us. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, at A Product of Proverbs. Subscribe to us anywhere you can get podcast at. That's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcast, Alexa, iHeartRadio. Also, check out Damascus Baptist Church for more positive messages like these. So that's going to be on Facebook and YouTube, Damascus Baptist Church. You can also Google Damascus Missionary Baptist Church. It's going to be the one in Emerson, Georgia.
Yeah, because there's a lot of Damascus Baptist churches.
Pastor Roy E. Fowler, and this is A Product of Proverbs.